Import Entries is a powerful plugin that allows you to import data into Gravity Forms. Importing data is a breeze, and there's no limit on the number of rows that you can import. So GravityView is not required to run import entries, but if you do have a GravityView All Access license, then you can install import entries from inside of your WordPress admin panel. So to do that, hover over Views, click on Manage Add-ons, and then scroll down until you see Import Entries, and then simply click Install. So I've already got mine installed, so I don't need to. Okay, so to start importing your entries into Gravity Forms, hover over Forms, click Import/Export, and then click on the Import Entries tab here on the left. So that will bring up the Import Entries screen, and as you can see there are 5 steps here. We're going to go through all of them. And the first step is to upload your CSV file. So you can either click there on the screen and search for the file, or you can simply drag it and drop it. So I've got mine open here, so I'll just drag it and drop it in there. As you can see, that imports quite quickly. And the next step is to choose whether we want to import our entries to an existing form or create a new form. So we'll start by importing to an existing form. Okay, so now we need to choose an existing form in Gravity Forms. So I'll choose this employees form here. But if you have a lot of forms, search in the search bar. So click on that. And now the next step is to map our fields. So we need to map the columns in our CSV file to the fields in our form. So the importer actually automatically detects the different field types. So it's got the name correct there, and the email is importing to an email field, so that's good. The employee ID field it hasn't detected, so we can just click on that drop down menu there, and we'll just select the employee ID field. Alright, so now that we're done, we can move on to the next step by clicking Continue with Import. Alright, so the next step is to configure the import options. So by default, the first option is switched on. So that's to continue processing if errors occur. So that'll mean the import continues even if errors show up. You can turn that off if you would like to. The next step is the conditional import. So we'll come back to that in a moment. And then we have email notifications. So this allows you to set up email notifications every time a new entry is imported. And then finally we have skip field validation. So basically when you import new entries, they are validated just like Gravity Forms would regularly do that by checking emails are in the correct format and things like that. If you wanted to skip that process, you could just enable this option here. So let's come back to the conditional import. So this allows us to set up an import based on parameters that we set. So if I enable that, you can see a new box opens up here, and we can basically set up conditions for our import. So for example, if I wanted to create a condition to only import entries where the employee ID number was greater than, let's say 12, I could select employee ID number there in the first dropdown, then select greater than in the second dropdown, and then I would just put in 12 there. So that would only import entries where the employee ID number was greater than 12. Now if you wanted to set up multiple conditions, you could just click that plus button and add more conditions. Okay, so let's continue with the import. Alright, so as you can see, our import has finished. So all 12 records have been imported. And we can either view the imported records or start a new import. Let's view the imported records. So this takes us to Gravity Forms, and we can see here that all our entries have been successfully imported. Okay, let's quickly go through how to create a new form in Import Entries. So as before, let's upload our CSV file by dragging and dropping it in there. And now instead of selecting an existing form, we're going to select create a new form. So first start off by giving your form a name. Click continue. And now the next step, as before, is to map our fields. So if we scroll down here, we can actually see the importer has not correctly identified the name field. So we're going to actually change that from a single line text to a name field, and then we'll map it to the first name. So that's pretty simple. Click Save. The email field, it has identified that correctly, so that's fine. Employee ID field is a number, so that's great too. If you wanted to remove one of these fields from the import, you could just click that X button there on the right. But everything else looks good to me, so let's scroll down and click Continue with Import. And again, we have the option to configure some import options. So we can continue processing if errors occur, set up a conditional import with the conditional logic, and configure email notifications. Alright, let's continue. Okay, so the import has finished. All 12 records are imported. So let's click View Imported Records. And as you can see, the plugin has created a brand new form for us in Gravity Forms. And here are all the entries associated with that new form.